Welcome to Building Texas with Justin McKenzie and Summer Babarek. Sponsored by the Boerne-Kendall County Economic Development Corporation and Das GreenHaus. And now, here's your host, Justin McKenzie.
Welcome to Building Texas on Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. Today we have a conversation that I think is long overdue around how we think about parks. And we're going to talk about parks in the City of Boerne today. And I think that's really a conversation that resonates with any master planned city that is thinking about parks and recreation. We see across Texas that's a priority, especially post-pandemic. People are wanting to get out into the parks and go enjoy fresh air. I think in the pandemic, a lot of people discovered parks that they didn't know were immediately accessible. And so it's been fun to watch that grow and to see that priority come along. Now, in Boerne, that's not a new conversation. We've had a master plan on parks for a long time. And today we're talking about the River Road Park in particular off of Seco Creek. And it got a lot of attention, mostly because it was extremely visible. The orange fence up and down River Road. You could see that we were working there. Welcoming Keith that did the work, really put together the teams that moved the dirt and planted the plants and made it all come together. And then Lissette from the City of Boerne, Director of Parks and Rec. Welcome, both of you. Keith, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
As we dive into it, Keith, you and I have had some opportunity to talk about the project, but I see that project, it went really smooth from about October to April, and it was focused on bank stabilization. That was the real meat of the project. But we as users of the park, we see the beautification side of it. Can you help me understand what is bank stabilization?
So the city hired some great engineers, local out of San Antonio, and they helped design a way to preserve the area of the park that we enjoy. So saving the bank was the focus of the project. So big limestone boulders underneath the water line that hopefully you won't see most of the year. Just a foundation to stabilize the bank so that we didn't erode any more of it.
That erosion is coming from water during a rain event or human traffic down there on the bank. What is it that erodes the bank of a creek like that?
You would think that it's the big floods coming upstream out of the lake and into there, but it's really the stuff that's downtown. It's coming off the streets through the gutters. Once the creek gets to its capacity, it's going over the dam, the water starts to back up and it floods over the curbs along River Road and washes out the park and just scours it. The foot traffic, the animal traffic weakens that vegetation. And then we get those seasonal rains that are overwhelming and it washes out the top of the park. And then once that vegetation's gone, then everything else starts to deteriorate erosion-wise.
Now, when that happens, that water coming off of downtown isn't exactly clean water going in. So I think some sort of filtration would be good before it hits the creek. Am I right in that assumption?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't part of the focus of this project, I don't believe, but definitely with the healthy vegetation, you're going to stop a lot of those solids and you're going to catch stuff before it gets into the water.
The last thing I'll talk about is the city did a great job with these steel structures that you put into the river. And I enjoyed the social media post. They made them big fictional characters from books. They really just put a lot of imagination around what are these steel creatures out in the middle of the river. But those are aerators, correct?
Yeah, there's an addition of 10 aerators that start under the bridge and work their way down to the dam, and they're engineered specific spaces and CFM coming in, and that's to help improve the habitat for the wildlife, the fish.
Despite my 9-year-old thinking that that's pumping water into the river, it's not. It's pumping purely just air and turning the water that's already there.
Yep. There's a compressor located in the park behind the bathrooms, and it's just pushing air underwater. It was a common misconception that we were filling the park water with, but had to wait on Mother Nature for that.
That's a shame. I know we've talked about putting water into their constant flow for at least a decade that I can think of. So I hope that that's something we'll reconsider in the future, but I know it's a big expense, anything with water around here. Keith, you have a company called Agave Landscape and Design?
Agave Design Studio, or design build. Yep, been here in Boerne I've been doing landscape in Boerne since 99, 2000, and started as Brady Lawn and Landscape, and we transitioned away from maintenance and changed the name about 5 years ago to Agave Design.
One of the things I appreciate about this project is every time I'd go down River Road, I'd see y'all working. and I'd see people I recognize, people driving the skid steers that I know from Cub Scouts or people from baseball youth leagues around city. So it seemed to be a very local project, and that doesn't happen often. That seems like an intentional decision.
Yeah, definitely for me. This isn't a project that we would normally take in another area, but right here in our backyard. And, I enjoy the park and all the parks we get to work in, and I want to be part of that process. So definitely part of our bidding process is to be the low bidder and get the work and keep it here in Boerne. So lots of partners here in Boerne. Anybody that enjoys the park probably saw people they know, and they know those other businesses well. And it's great that we kept all that bond money here in Boerne.
Keith, I didn't know that you would have not necessarily considered doing this project somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the team, the engineers and architects on this wanted us to go look at other projects just in Bandera or Bexar County, and it's not something that we're as interested in doing.
Makes me even more proud that you were selected for this.
And this isn't the only project like this that you've worked on. You've worked on some other local projects that would be fairly visible. And I think with the same attitude towards it, it's a place you live. It's a place you want to see be successful. Yeah. So you've invested in it.
This is probably the first time I've met with Lissette inside under a roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
The last 14, 15 years, all the projects we've done, maybe 6 or 7 of them between us and the city, we always meet outside.
Yeah, it's true.
Outside of River Road, do you have one that jumps to mind that you'd want to call people's attention to?
They're all fun. The Gateway was fun, and I used to drive by it. Every time I drive by it, I'd stare at it. Now I don't notice it as much, but it's fun to see the Gateway. Kinder Park, Optim's Park. Everybody loves that park. It's probably the smallest piece of property that you call a park around here, but everybody loves it. When you've got little kids, everyone goes there and remember that park. Maybe they age out of that one and go to the skate park or somewhere else, but no, they've all been fun.
Even old number 9.
Old number 9, I love walking that one. Yep.
So I was telling you my story of being on the front page of the Boerne Star as a kid catching fish in River Road Park. When I came back, I made the front page of the newspaper wrecking my truck on old number 9. So I have the bookends of the Boerne Star.
Were you telling a fish story when you got in the accident?
Probably, but the city manager's son was sitting in the passenger seat. He was less than thrilled by our shenanigans. So let's talk about parks, because you've worked with Lissette, you've worked with the Parks Department over a number of projects now. And it really drew me in, and I've talked to Ben Thatcher in the past, and he's passionate about master planning. But when it comes to parks, I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that there's a master plan for our parks in the community. Lissette, can you help us understand what does that look like, and what is the City of Boerne thinking about when it comes to parks?
The current master plan that you have looked at, it's time for another touch of love to that. And so the last biggest item in that master plan is the Northside Community Park. And I think that once we hit that and accomplish that part, we can truly say that we've accomplished the 10 largest items that the master plan points out. And like you said, most people don't realize that we have a parks master plan. And I would hope that once the citizens realize that we do, that they should be proud of that they live in a community where there is some forethought into how we design parks so that they give us another reason to bring our community together. Whether it's parks connecting to sidewalks or trails, that everything has a purpose. I think that residents should take a lot of pride that we have people who are thinking about our future and that we're not settling and that we're always looking to see what we can do better. Really, the Parks Master Plan is to give guidance, to give accountability to the city, to the Parks Department.
I appreciated there's a big emphasis on stakeholder input in the master plan. And for all of the feedback and noise that we saw around River Road and the River Road Park, it's a small handful of people that really don't even live in the city that are making that noise. But I want them to understand that 10 years ago, there was a forum to come give feedback.
Correct.
If you're going to touch it up, which I'm thrilled to hear, that's another opportunity for people to come get involved as stakeholders in our community and say, what does the future look like? Because these aren't, the River Road Park was supposed to happen 3-4 years ago.
Correct.
And you all had to take financial decisions and be stewards of the plan and get it done when it was the right time.
Right.
But it's been on the roadmap for, 10 years.
Yeah.
And people forget that. They think, Lissette woke up this morning and we're going to build a new park. That's just not how it happens.
No, it takes a lot of patience, a lot of planning and patience. But I will say that our city manager now, Ben Thatcher, he has implemented citizen surveys. So every 2 years, citizens have the opportunity to give their input. And so not to gear away from our project that we're talking about, River Road, but the Northside Community Park, that was all the amenities that we show in our master plan and that we've shown as city council. Those amenities were citizens' inputs. We're not just waking up and deciding, this is what's best for Boerne. We're listening.
And when you talk about the Northside Park, in my mind, is across from what is now Currington Elementary.
Correct.
And you might know the Boerne Skate Park is there.
Yep.
And then it's a big field and some LCRA towers and things like that. But that's going to be a beautiful 13, 14 acre park over the coming years. I think a splash pad's in the works there. I think there's a lot of just full family activity. And with us losing places like the Dog and Pony and other family-friendly places, I think the parks are going to be a great reminder that that's something free and available for our citizens.
Correct. And I think that people forget, kind of going back to what you were previously saying is, I'm just going to use sports as an example. Yeah. We serve not just Boerne residents. We serve the community, the county, our surrounding neighbors. And so back to youth, 70% of our kids that are at our fields, they're not city residents. And so I believe that this park will just be another great addition to Boerne, showing that we're great stewards and we want to be able to provide for everybody.
Well, that comes out in the master plan, and I do want to encourage people, get involved, pay attention to what you're passionate about. It's one thing to put your opinion on social media, but if you show up to these planning meetings, you can have a real legacy in what gets built.
Yeah. Speaking of legacy, that's why, look at Keith. This park, this River Road bank stabilization, that's a legacy for him. And that's something that I think the city can be proud of.
I think so. And we've learned today that it's a local project.
Yeah.
When we can keep local dollars back into the community, that's who's sponsoring the sports teams at Northrop.
Right.
That's who's putting out the extra little touch to make it that much nicer. And they're not necessarily putting that into the bid, but they know that this is something that they want for their community. And it comes across. That's something you can't put an itemized bill around, is the passion and desire for it to be somewhere that they can bring their family or their friends to celebrate.
I think you definitely hit on that. And I think another example of that, Keith has worked a lot with Donnie Bergman, who been with the city for 35 years. He's my assistant director. And the fact that he has the knowledge and history of what Boerne was and what it's come to and what it's going to be, having someone like Donnie work with Keith, that's so special, so important.
Yeah, every time I walk a project with you or Danny or Donnie, I learn something.
Yeah.
And he remembers why something was placed there, and it may look different or out of place now, but it had a reason at some point, or we know why, its origins. But there's 25 kids on the welding team, or maybe more than that helped. So they've all got ownership in the park now.
Yeah, they do. And that's so special, so unique.
You're listening to Building Texas on Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. As we come back from the break, I want to talk about the kids who welded at the park. I did not know that. That'll be a lot of fun. And it does talk to the legacy and the planning that goes into this when you can get high school kids involved. This week, Building Texas is proud to highlight an AFJROTC cadet and everything they're experiencing through the ROTC program at Boerne ISD.
My name is Noah Hernandez. This is my third year in the program. I'm the current group commander of Boerne AFJROTC. I joined originally because freshman year I had an open slot and I was trying to fill in, just see what was available. Ended up coming out on the other end knowing that JROTC was something that I wanted to be a part of. It's different from a lot of other organizations at ROTC because it actually engages the cadet. It's very student-led. This unit's really connected me with a lot of out-of-school opportunities. Like, I want to go to the Naval Academy, and I want to be a pilot. And because of ROTC, they connected me with the DFT Flight Scholarship, which is an amazing opportunity because last summer I got to basically work up to my solo for free, which is like 15 hours. That was definitely a great opportunity for me. And then the service opportunities too, ROTC, it's probably bigger than NHS in terms of like volunteer. We have a lot of community partners, and it's really great the way that we can actually not only help the cadets in our school, but we actually are tied very closely with the community.
This is Justin McKenzie from Building Texas. Today's segment is brought to you by Das GreenHaus. Das GreenHaus is a business incubator launched here in Boerne to serve our local community. Das GreenHaus is a place where you can come to grow your idea. Our goal is to make Boerne accessible to people who are looking to grow a business, expand a business, or learn more about what's out there in their community and get involved. Visit us at dasgreenhaus.org or come visit us at 7 Upper Balcones Road, Boerne, Texas. Das GreenHaus. Welcome back to Building Texas on Boerne Radio 103.9 FM. We're sitting here with Keith Brady from Agave Designs and Lissette Jimenez from Boerne Parks and Rec. Keith, before the break, you mentioned 25 kids welded on that project.
I don't know the exact numbers. At least 25 showed up for the installation day, and there were several of them at the ribbon cutting. There could have been more than that, but there was a big bunch of kids that helped those underwater fishing structures. I think there's 5 of them. They received donated steel from one of the other vendors on this project. It was pretty cool to see them build that stuff and get it installed and then come to the ribbon cutting. And all those kids, when they're there with their friends, they're going to respect the water that much more. They're doing something to improve the habitat.
Well, we're sitting here at Das GreenHaus, and it's an entrepreneurial place. We have about 35 companies going through and building, and it's from all ages. I've seen high school kids in here last week pitching, trying to win a contest, and they have some brilliant ideas. And then we have retirees that are coming in here and looking. I mentioned that because Agave is an entrepreneurial journey. You talked about rebranding and the naming that you've gone through, but remind me, I think you started off in this career path very early in life.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in high school, I started doing landscape projects for neighbors. It's unbelievable to think back what they were allowing me to do for them in a new house, but no one ever said no. So I started doing landscape construction and a general contractor before I knew it as a kid.
Did you see that as, oh, I'm going to make a career out of this, or was it a means to an end at that time and evolved?
Yeah, needed gas money and running around money as a high school kid. And my father was an entrepreneur, so maybe I was able to see that and just resembled that.
Oh, I appreciate it because I think it's a good example for those kids that were out there welding. Like, they probably are doing it for similar reasons and not realizing that they may be turning on the next phase of their life and seeing that this is something they could do. Welders, independent welders, can do very well depending on where they go work. But to have that spark and that opportunity as a high school kid, which is what I think we do well in this community, is there's a lot of opportunities for kids to get out and see how work is happening. And it's not always what their parents did. So I appreciate the Agave story because you've come a long way. When we talk about starting at 14, mowing grass, you went through an adult life and career in college and all those things.
Hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em horns. Yeah, because you grew up in Austin. We've talked about this.
Yeah, so I didn't go to school there, but they're my adopted school.
So 2 Longhorn fans, and I think back to the point around kids having that visibility and seeing an inspirational story. I think as kids talk to you, you're probably welcoming to share the hard work and what you're passionate about. How did you make the transition from landscaping to design? What does that really look like?
It's really hard to start the project without a really clear plan. So I've always had to gravitate and find architects to help me put down on paper what we're going to do and sell it to the customer or show a customer. I don't feel like we do much selling, but we need really talented people in the office and on our teams to design stuff, just like the River Road project. We were the general contractor in this one. We put our own flair on the design, and in the end, we get to help with the finishing touches. But there was a talented design team, engineers, environmental engineers, structural engineers, landscape architects that all put the plans together. So for the work we do every week, residential work, and we've got to have landscape architects that look at a lot of stuff to, put the window dressing on a new house, a new building. But there's a lot of time and thought that goes into it before you pick out the plans.
And even with all that, we had to make changes throughout the entire project. We had to make changes as obstacles came to our attention. And Keith and his team, I don't know what Keith was feeling inside, but he handled it so well. I mean, he was just like, okay, and worked around it.
River Road Park, we had a roughly 250 feet of boardwalk, and that had to change, and where we were setting the concrete structure to get it in. And there's 3 new fishing piers that are in the project, and all 3 of those had to be tweaked to fit the contours and, the trees. Some of these plans were started probably back in 17 or 18, and the plans were kind of put on the shelf back in 19. So we had to pick up and change some stuff that, just nature had changed the park.
The hot topic that I think happens when I think of landscaping, residential or designed for parks, is water and water use. There's a lot of people that would say, oh, you're putting in all these high use, high need plants, but I tend to think that's not the reality of what you're doing. How do you think about water conservation when you're designing a property?
It's amazing. From 20 years ago, we would have truckloads of grass delivered to every project, and 20,000 square feet of grass was the norm. And now it's usually less than a truckload of grass. It's 10,000 square feet of grass, 7,000 square feet for the whole project, and a lot more area of beds and trees and a lot less turf area. We're concentrating the area that people are going to use and not just filling in the rest of it with turf. And in River Road project, a lot of turf was removed and replaced with plant beds that'll require a lot less water over time.
Help me understand. So when we think about water and landscaping, I think people are running sprinkler systems and having to water their plants. But is that always the case? I think there's a lot of different water. Purple pipe is a big conversation in newer developments. How does the everyday person, the average listener, how can they make a difference when it comes to their personal landscaping and design choices?
I think the city's got a program right now. If you audit your system or you work on it and improve the efficiency, you can get a rebate on your utility bills from the city. But just checking the system you've got now, make sure you've got a weather sensor so it's only working when it needs to work, and you're not spraying water into the street on existing landscapes, on new landscapes. Just put turf where it's going to do well and where you need it. You know, if your kids don't need a soccer field in the backyard, then don't build one. You just need enough turf to get from the front yard to the backyard and for pets and for, minimal aesthetic reasons, but increase the beds. And at my house, my irrigation system's normally off, and I just turn it on when I feel like I need to, supplement the water. So it's not coming on every Wednesday or the day of the week that it's set for. It just comes on when I go out there and turn it back on. So I try to stretch the plants and the grass to survive with as little water as possible. Be
more intentional about it.
Absolutely.
So as you think about new parks and we think about rainwater capture, I know the City of Boerne has some incentive programs around water conservation. What's the educational side of that? How does River Road Park help people understand what's going on? We've talked about bank stabilization. We've talked about water conservation. We went to ADA compliance with the boardwalk. We did a lot of great improvements for a number of different stakeholders or communities in our stakeholder groups. What's next? What's on that horizon that we're thinking about in the future of parks? Is it still water and beautification, or are we thinking more around getting kids out and getting them more exposure? Are we shifting with demographics as we see more retirees coming in here? Do we have adult parks to think about? What's on the radar?
Put a lot out there. I think water conservation is where you started. Mm-hmm. And I would think, for conservation, I go to cleaning the water. Walk up and down Main Street, all those inlets that catch everything that's on Main Street. If we had some bioswales, it's hard to do it now, but if we changed Main Street and we changed some of the side streets and the water had to filter through a green space before it went into a storm drain. I think the library and City Hall has that now, where everything comes off the parking lots, goes through a biofilter before it gets into a storm drain. So if you look at the water that comes into the park, which I firsthand look for 6 months, just a little rain, a half-inch rain, all the detergents and oils and stuff that would wash off the street that would come in, and we would see at a very concentrated level because the water was so low in the silo while we were working in it. It's just astounding how much, stuff that gets washed in.
I appreciate that you called out the library there, because when we walk through like the amphitheater area or we walk around that library complex, I wouldn't have noticed that. But now that you call it out, it's going to be hard not to see that it was very intentional to put a filter between where humans are doing activity, making a mess, and how it gets into the creek, Cibolo Creek.
You get to see that the new Adler Road Park, the Northside Park. There's going to be all the stormwater is going to wash through a biofilter in most cases. Landscape. It looks like landscape, but it's pretty cool.
Lissette, what's on the horizon for you? You're newer in the role, coming into Director of Parks role. What is the challenge? What is your charge for the rest of the year?
Northside Community Park.
What can we look forward to there?
Everything.
All of it.
All of it. All of it. I think everyone in the Parks Department is extremely excited, and I think the community is ready. It's past due.
And a reminder, that's 26 acres, a master planned park that really is going to have a lot for everyone. I'm thinking splash pads, a skate park. Is there more sports parks going in there?
Yes, so we'll have 3 multi-use fields. So for those sports that don't really have a home, like lacrosse or flag football, youth and adults, we'll be able to provide that need for them. Splash pad, playground, all-inclusive, of course, a walking trail, a pump track, because that's been requested.
What is a pump track?
Think about dirt bikes.
Okay.
Yeah.
like a BMX kind of track.
Yep. So designed specifically right now so that the parents can go walk a trail while their kids are on the pump track. We'll have additional practice fields, dog park. It'll be the first dog park inside the city limits of Boerne. Again, requested.
I've never thought about that. We don't have a dog park, do we?
No, the county has a dog park.
Joshua Creek at the county park would don't be the only dog park I can think of.
Yeah, we'll be the first one. Esperanza has a dog park, but this will be the first dog park in the city limits. So that's pretty exciting.
Well, I appreciate y'all coming in and sharing the perspective and all of the stories. I learned a couple of different things throughout the conversation, from kids welding on the fish structures to what bank stabilization really looked like, why it was important, and then the future of the parks. I'll finish Lissette on the master plan and just encouraging people, especially if you're a resident in the city of Boerne, going out and getting familiar with all of the master plans for the community. The parks one, when it comes back around to be revamped, if you have an opinion, this is a great opportunity to voice it. Look for those citizen surveys and fill out what the need is. It's a lot more productive when we can get into the actual planning cycle rather than just throwing stones at the end. So I want to reiterate to people, get involved. And it's easy to do with a master plan.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both, Keith and Lissette, for the way that you're building Texas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Justin McKenzie from Building Texas. Today's segment is brought to you by Das GreenHaus. Das GreenHaus is a business incubator launched here in Boerne to serve our local community. Das GreenHaus is a place where you can come to grow your idea. Our goal is to make Boerne accessible to people who are looking to grow a business, expand a business, or learn more about what's out there in their community and get involved. Visit us at dasgreenhaus.org or come visit us at 7 Upper Balcones Road, Boerne, Texas. Das GreenHaus.